Hello there, and welcome to the Sleepy Mystery Channel. Tonight, we'll be exploring one of the greatest lost civilizations in history, an island empire described by Plato, said to have stood beyond the known world. This mystical place had vast cities, sacred rings of water, technology greater than even today, and a god-king descended from Poseidon himself. Some say this was just a made-up story, while others believe Plato was preserving a memory, carried through Egypt, of a real place destroyed by earthquakes, floods, and a disaster so sudden it seemed to erase a world in a single night. Across the centuries, Atlantis was placed near Santorini, the Sahara, and the Bahamas, and even beneath the polar ice caps. Some search for ruins, while others search for hidden records, lost technology, strange metals, and ancient maps of a forgotten age. If you enjoy these curious journeys, I invite you to like, subscribe, or share a thought below. It helps others find their way here too, one sleepy soul at a time. But for now, all you need to do is settle in. Let your shoulders soften. Let your breathing slow. And as the day begins to gently fade away, join me as we explore this forgotten world together. Let's begin. Plato described Atlantis as a mighty empire that vanished overnight. The story begins with one of the most famous minds in the ancient world, which is exactly why this mystery refuses to disappear. Plato did not mention a vague rumor about a ruined island. He described a powerful sea empire with armies, kings, laws, temples, canals, and a capital planned with astonishing order. Then he claimed it was destroyed in one terrible day and night. That single detail has haunted readers for more than 2,000 years, because it sounds less like a slow decline and more like a catastrophe remembered through shock. Some see it as pure philosophy, designed to warn Athens about greed and pride. Others wonder why Plato would build such an elaborate setting if he only needed a simple moral lesson. The strange power of the account comes from that uncertainty. It feels like a myth, but it has the weight of a report. Atlantis was said to lie beyond the Pillars of Heracles. To ancient Greek ears, that phrase pointed toward the edge of the familiar world. The Pillars were often understood as the gateway near Gibraltar, where the Mediterranean opens into the Atlantic. Beyond that passage lay dangerous water, foreign coasts, and lands that could become enormous in the imagination. This location makes the story feel bigger than a local legend, because it places the lost empire outside the safe map of ordinary Greek life. For Atlantis hunters, those few words have become a compass. Some take them literally and search the Atlantic. Others believe ancient place names shifted over time, which opens the door to Spain, North Africa, Sicily, and even regions farther east. The mystery depends on whether Plato meant geography, symbolism, or both. A boundary can mark a real place, but it can also mark the place where certainty ends. Egyptian priests may have preserved the story before Plato heard it. According to the tradition inside the account, the tale did not begin in Greece at all. It passed through the lawgiver Solon, who supposedly heard it while visiting the temple city of Sisi in Egypt. That detail changes everything, because Egypt was famous for deep records, priestly archives, and a memory that reached far beyond ordinary Greek history. The priests allegedly told Solon that his people were like children, because disasters kept wiping out their written knowledge. This gives Atlantis an almost forbidden quality, as if it survived only because one older civilization had protected the record. Skeptics argue that this chain of transmission makes the story harder to verify. Believers find it fascinating for the same reason. It suggests Atlantis may have been filtered through translation, sacred archives, and cultural memory before Plato ever shaped it into words. Somewhere in that chain, fact and legend may have blended. The island supposedly sank after earthquakes and floods struck together. A sudden natural disaster gives the legend its unforgettable force. Plato does not describe a kingdom merely conquered or abandoned. He describes the ground breaking, the waters rising, and a proud civilization being swallowed into mud and sea. That combination feels dramatic, but it is not impossible in the ancient world. Earthquakes can drop coastlines. Tsunamis can erase harbors. Volcanic eruptions can turn daylight strange and spread panic across trading networks. When these events happen together, survivors may remember them as the end of an age. Some people connect the description to real disasters around the Mediterranean. Others imagine a far older cataclysm linked to global floods or lost continents. The power of this clue is that it sits between geology and myth. It sounds extreme, yet human history contains many examples of places that vanished from view. Atlantis asks whether one of them became the greatest legend of all. Atlantis was described as older than every known Greek kingdom. This is one of the most unsettling claims in the story, because it pushes the lost empire into a past that should not contain such power. The account places it long before the famous age of classical Greece, before Homer's heroes, and before the cities most people associate with ancient civilization. If taken literally, it suggests that advanced societies may have risen, flourished, and disappeared before the historical record became clear. That possibility is irresistible to alternative thinkers because it challenges the neat staircase version of human progress. Mainstream readers often treat the date as symbolic or mistaken. Yet even a mistake can be meaningful. Ancient people knew floods, fires, invasions, and earthquakes could destroy archives. They also knew that memory survives in fragments. The idea of an older world beneath known history keeps returning because archaeology itself has repeatedly shown that human organization began earlier than scholars once believed. Its capital had perfect rings of land, water, and power. The city at the heart of the legend may be the most hypnotic detail Plato gives us. It was not a random settlement on a shore. It was arranged in circular zones, with alternating bands of earth and canals surrounding a sacred center. That design feels almost too specific to ignore. It suggests planning, engineering, ceremony, defense, and control, all woven into the same shape. A ruler could stand at the center while ships, bridges, walls, and districts spread outward in ordered layers. Some interpret the rings as a symbolic map of cosmic harmony. Others see the plan as practical harbor engineering for a sea empire. Modern Atlantis seekers often look for circular traces from the air or underwater, because this one feature seems like a fingerprint. Even if the city never existed, the design is unforgettable. It turns Atlantis from a lost island into a planned world. The lost city was linked to Poseidon and a royal bloodline. The divine origin story makes Atlantis feel less like an ordinary kingdom and more like a sacred experiment. Poseidon was said to have loved a mortal woman and established a ruling line through their children. From that beginning came dynasties, territories, rituals, and a sense of destiny. In ancient storytelling, this kind of ancestry did more than flatter kings. It explained why a place had power, why its laws mattered, and why its fall carried cosmic meaning. For some listeners, the Poseidon connection proves the story belongs to myth. For others, it may hide an older memory of seafaring rulers who claimed divine descent to protect their authority. The ocean god also fits the geography perfectly. Atlantis rises from the sea, rules by the sea, and is finally taken by the sea. The same force that blesses the kingdom becomes the force that removes it. Some believe Atlantis was not myth, but forbidden, ancient history. This is where the mystery becomes especially magnetic. A myth can be beautiful, but forbidden history feels dangerous, as if something important was pushed beneath the surface. Across the years, people have argued that Atlantis may preserve traces of a real civilization whose achievements were later dismissed, hidden, or misunderstood. The idea appeals to anyone who suspects the official timeline has missing chapters. Perhaps ancient scholars simplified the past. Perhaps conquerors destroyed records. Perhaps survivors carried fragments of knowledge into Egypt, Greece, and other cultures without explaining where they came from. Of course, there is no accepted proof that Atlantis existed as Plato described it. Yet the possibility lingers because human history is full of lost cities that were once treated as fantasy. Troy was long debated. Heraklion slept underwater. Entire landscapes have drowned since the Ice Age. Atlantis survives in the gap between disbelief and discovery. The empire was said to control lands across the Western Sea. Plato's version does not describe a lonely island minding its own business. It describes an expanding power with influence over other territories, ports, and peoples. That detail makes Atlantis feel geopolitical, not merely magical. It was a maritime empire, which means ships, trade routes, tribute, soldiers, and ambition. In this form, the legend starts to resemble the great naval powers of later history. Sea control can make a civilization wealthy very quickly, especially if it commands metals, grain, timber, and strategic passages. Some people think this part may reflect memories of Bronze Age trade networks that connected distant shores long before modern maps made them look close. Others believe it was Plato's way of creating a threatening rival for ancient Athens. Either way, the empire's reach matters. Atlantis was not frightening because it was hidden. It was frightening because, in the story, it was coming for everyone. Atlantis may have been a warning about civilizations that grow too proud. Even the wildest version of the legend carries a clear moral shape. The Atlanteans begin as noble, disciplined, and close to their divine origin. Over time, they become hungry for conquest, wealth, and domination. That decline gives the story a familiar pattern. A society rises through order and virtue, then loses itself through arrogance. For Plato, this may have been the real point. He often used imagined settings to explore power, justice, and the soul of a city. Yet a warning can still be built from memory. Ancient disasters were often interpreted as punishment because people needed meaning when whole communities vanished. That makes Atlantis powerful on two levels. It can be read as a political lesson, but it can also be heard as a memory of collapse. The mystery is not just whether the island existed. It is whether our world would recognize the same danger in itself. Plato's account is the only ancient source that names Atlantis directly. This is one of the strongest reasons many scholars remain cautious. For all the later fascination, the original name comes from Plato's dialogues, and no earlier surviving Greek text clearly identifies the same place. That makes the evidence narrow, but also strangely focused. Everything begins with one author, two works, and a story presented through layers of speakers. A mystery with only one doorway can feel suspicious. Yet it can also feel precious, because a single surviving text may be the last trace of something larger. Ancient literature is full of losses. Whole libraries burned, scrolls decayed, and oral traditions vanished before anyone wrote them down. So the absence of many sources does not automatically close the case. It creates a tension at the center of the subject. Either Plato invented a civilization so vivid that the world still searches for it, or he preserved the last name of something almost erased. The unfinished ending of Critias leaves the mystery strangely suspended. Just when the account seems ready to reveal the divine judgment on Atlantis, the text breaks off. That interruption has fed centuries of speculation. We are left with the island fully described, its kings assembled, its power explained, and its moral decline set in motion. Then the story stops before the final reckoning unfolds. For a mystery lover, this is almost too perfect. The missing ending feels like a locked room in literature. Was the work simply abandoned? Did part of it disappear? Did Plato decide the point had already been made? No one knows. The fragmentary state gives Atlantis a different kind of life because the reader is forced to imagine what came next. A complete story might have limited the legend. An unfinished one keeps expanding. The silence at the end feels less like a conclusion and more like an invitation to keep searching. Solon allegedly heard the story from priests in ancient Egypt. Solon was not a random traveler in Greek memory. He was remembered as a lawgiver, reformer, and serious public figure, which gives the transmission story a sense of dignity. The account says he visited Egypt and spoke with learned priests who had access to records older than anything Greece possessed. This creates an intriguing chain. Egyptian priests tell Solon. Solon brings the tale back. Later generations preserve it until Plato uses it in his dialogues. Each step adds both credibility and uncertainty. A story can gain authority through respected names, but it can also change as it passes from language to language and family to family. Some people see Solon as the bridge between history and legend. Others see him as a literary device. Either way, his presence matters. He makes Atlantis feel like something recovered from an archive rather than invented beside a fire for entertainment. The priests claimed Greek memory had been erased by repeated disasters. This idea is quietly explosive because it suggests that entire civilizations may forget their own past. The Egyptian speakers reportedly told Solon that floods, fires, and other destructions had repeatedly reset Greek knowledge. Survivors remained, but books, monuments, and institutions were lost. The next generation grew up thinking the world was younger than it really was. This is one of the most fascinating ideas in the Atlantis tradition. It does not rely only on a missing island. It proposes a pattern of historical amnesia. Catastrophe destroys records, then later people mistake silence for absence. Alternative writers often use this concept to argue that advanced knowledge could have appeared, vanished, and reappeared in fragments. More cautious readers see it as a dramatic way to contrast Egypt's long memory with Greece's shorter one. Yet the central thought remains powerful. A culture can lose more than buildings. It can lose the story of itself. Atlantis was said to exist 9,000 years before Solon's visit. That date is one of the boldest and most controversial details in the entire legend. It places the lost civilization far back into prehistory, near a time when the usual picture of human society looks very different from Plato's description. Cities, empires, and grand navies are not normally expected there. This is why many readers assume the number was symbolic, exaggerated, or mistranslated. Some suggest lunar years, scribal confusion, or Egyptian counting systems may have distorted the timeline. Others take the date seriously and connect it to the end of the Ice Age, rising seas, and global memories of flooding. The fascination comes from the scale of the claim. If the number is wrong, Atlantis may still hide a later historical event. If it is right, then civilization may have a lost chapter far older than most people imagine. That possibility is exactly why the date keeps pulling people back. The timeline places Atlantis far deeper than accepted history allows. A fully developed empire in such remote antiquity would disturb the tidy version of the human story. It would mean that organized power, monumental planning, ocean travel, and complex political systems existed much earlier than conventional history expects. This does not mean the claim is proven, but it explains why Atlantis became a magnet for radical ideas. The deeper the timeline goes, the more room appears for forgotten sciences, destroyed archives, and survivors who carried knowledge into later cultures. Some people link this to Ice Age coastlines, when many human settlements would have stood on land now underwater. Others argue that Plato's numbers simply cannot be treated literally. Both views leave a haunting question. How much of the earliest human world is missing because we have been searching on today's dry land? If ancient people lived near rivers and coasts, then the sea may be hiding more than ruins. It may be hiding context. The island was described as larger than Libya and Asia combined. At first glance, this sounds impossible, and that is exactly why it matters. Ancient geographical terms did not always match modern continents. Libya could mean parts of North Africa, and Asia could refer to regions known to Greeks rather than the vast landmass we picture today. Even so, the description gives Atlantis a scale that feels enormous. Plato wanted listeners to imagine not a small volcanic island, but a major land or power center. Some interpret this as a clue that Atlantis was a broad territory with colonies rather than one compact island. Others see it as exaggeration meant to make the enemy seem grand enough for a legendary conflict. There is also a translation problem beneath the surface. Ancient measurements, names, and assumptions can shift as texts move through time. The phrase may be less a map than a signal. Whatever Atlantis was, it was meant to feel world-sized. Ancient geography may have made Plato's measurements easy to misunderstand. Modern readers often expect ancient texts to behave like satellite maps, but that is not how geography worked in Plato's world. Distances could come from sailors, traders, second-hand reports, political imagination, and older records. A number might be copied correctly, but the place it described could still be misunderstood. A name might refer to a region, a coastline, a people, or a direction rather than a fixed border. This matters for Atlantis because the entire search depends on interpreting ancient language with modern confidence. Some theories shrink the measurements. Others relocate the landmarks. A few argue that the story was never meant to be navigated like a chart. Yet even uncertainty can be useful. It reminds us that an ancient description may preserve real information in distorted form. The clue could be accurate, mistaken, symbolic, or layered. That is why the geography of Atlantis remains less like a puzzle with one piece missing and more like a map drawn from memory. The Pillars of Heracles may not mean only Gibraltar. The famous gateway is usually linked to the strait between Spain and North Africa, but ancient naming was not always fixed. Some traditions used heroic landmarks in flexible ways, and different cultures could apply familiar names to different edges of the known world. If that is true here, the search area changes dramatically. Atlantis might not need to be in the open Atlantic. It could belong to another western boundary, another sea passage, or a symbolic threshold beyond safe civilization. This possibility explains why so many competing locations survive. A single phrase can send one researcher toward Morocco, another toward Sicily, and another toward the Atlantic Islands. Skeptics argue that stretching the term makes the theory impossible to test. Believers answer that ancient texts require ancient habits of thought. The phrase remains powerful because it sounds precise, yet it may not be as simple as it first appears. One landmark can become many doors. Some researchers place Atlantis inside the Mediterranean instead. The inland sea offers something the open ocean does not. It contains real Bronze Age kingdoms, active fault lines, volcanic islands, vanished ports, and cultures that influenced Greece directly. A Mediterranean Atlantis could explain why the story feels both exotic and strangely familiar. Candidates have included Santorini, Crete, Sicily, Malta, Sardinia, Cyprus, and regions near the western coast. Each offers a different piece of the puzzle. Some have sudden destruction. Some have ancient temples. Some have powerful fleets. Some sit near trade routes where stories could travel and change. This approach also avoids the problem of a massive lost continent sinking in the Atlantic, which geology does not easily support. Yet moving Atlantis into the Mediterranean creates another question. Why would Plato describe it as beyond the famous gateway? The answer may involve confused directions, symbolic geography, or a memory that changed during transmission. The sea itself becomes the archive, holding too many possibilities to dismiss. Santorini's eruption remains one of the strongest Atlantis candidates. The case is powerful because it begins with a real island disaster, not a vague legend. In the Bronze Age, the volcanic island of Thera exploded with enough force to reshape coastlines and send shock through the Aegean world. Nearby Crete was home to the Minoans, whose palaces, ships, art, and trade routes made them one of the most impressive cultures of their age. That combination feels almost tailor-made for Atlantis' speculation. A wealthy island world, a maritime civilization, and a sudden natural catastrophe all sit in the same historical neighborhood. The problem is that the details do not line up perfectly with Plato. The date is too late. The location is too far inside the Mediterranean. Yet legends do not always preserve events cleanly. They can stretch one real disaster until it becomes the memory of an entire vanished world. The Minoan civilization collapsed after a real island catastrophe. Crete gives the Atlantis mystery something solid to hold on to. This was not a primitive society living at the edge of history. The Minoans built palace complexes, managed trade, decorated walls with vivid art, and sent ships across a wide network of ports. Then the eruption of nearby Thera placed enormous pressure on that world. Ash, waves, damaged harbors, disrupted trade, and frightened communities may have weakened a civilization that had seemed secure. The collapse was probably not instant, but that makes it even more interesting. Real civilizations often fall in stages. A disaster strikes, systems strain, rivals move in, and memory later compresses the whole process into one dramatic ending. Some people see the Minoans as a strong candidate for the civilization behind the Atlantis story. Others think they were only one ingredient in a larger legend. Either way, they prove that a brilliant island culture really did fall. Thera's volcanic blast may have inspired memories of a drowned kingdom. A volcanic eruption can become more than an event. It can become a wound in collective memory. When Thera exploded, people across the Aegean may have seen strange skies, felt the sea behave unnaturally, and heard stories from survivors who escaped ruined settlements. A tsunami would not need to sink an entire continent to become terrifying. It only needed to destroy harbors, ships, villages, and confidence. Over generations, eyewitness accounts could shift as they moved through sailors, traders, priests, and storytellers. One island disaster might merge with another flood memory. A damaged culture might become a lost empire. A volcanic caldera might become a city swallowed by the sea. This theory works because it respects how human memory behaves. It does not demand that Plato copied a perfect historical report. It suggests that one of the ancient world's most frightening disasters may have supplied the emotional truth behind Atlantis. Akrotiri was preserved under ash like a Bronze Age time capsule. The buried town on Santorini makes the Atlantis comparison feel immediate. Streets, houses, storage rooms, painted walls, and drainage systems were sealed beneath volcanic material for thousands of years. When the site was uncovered, it revealed a community far more refined than many people expect from deep antiquity. The wall paintings show ships, plants, animals, people, and rituals from a connected island world. It feels alive, planned, prosperous, and suddenly interrupted. One of the strangest details is what has not been found in abundance. The evidence suggests many inhabitants may have left before the final destruction. If they escaped, then they may have carried the memory of their lost town to other shores. That is where the imagination begins to stir. A real settlement was buried by a real catastrophe, and its people may have survived to tell the tale. Atlantis may not be Akrotiri, but Akrotiri shows how legends can begin. Minoan palaces show the kind of sophistication linked to Atlantis. The palace centers of Crete feel like a missing bridge between ordinary history and legend. Knossos, Phaistos, Malea, and other sites were not simple strongholds. They were complex centers with courtyards, stairways, storage areas, ritual spaces, painted walls, and administrative systems. They suggest a culture that understood movement, ceremony, resources, and power. That matters because Atlantis is described as rich, organized, and architecturally impressive. Some people imagine that later storytellers took memories of Minoan grandeur and reshaped them into a more distant island empire. The idea is tempting because Crete already had the ingredients. It had sea power, beauty, wealth, and mystery. It also had writing that remains partly unread, which leaves its inner world strangely closed to us. No one needs to claim that Knossos was the exact capital of Atlantis. The deeper point is that the ancient Mediterranean really did contain societies impressive enough to become larger than life in memory. Crete's maritime power matches part of Plato's imperial description. The sea can make a kingdom feel much larger than its land. Crete sat in a position where ships could move toward Egypt, Greece, Cyprus, and the Levant. That made the Minoans important in trade, influence, and cultural exchange. Goods moved through their networks. Artistic styles traveled. Ideas crossed water with merchants, sailors, and envoys. Plato's Atlantis is frightening partly because it is not isolated. It is a naval power with reach. Crete fits that part of the picture better than many candidates. The challenge is that Crete does not sit beyond the usual western boundary, and its known history does not match the legendary timeline. Still, the comparison remains valuable. A maritime civilization can dominate without controlling a huge land empire. It can shape the world through routes, ports, and prestige. If Atlantis was a distorted memory of sea power, then Minoan Crete shows how that kind of power could really exist. The Sea Peoples may preserve echoes of a collapsing Atlantic world. Near the end of the Bronze Age, the eastern Mediterranean entered a period of shock. Cities burned. Trade faltered. Kingdoms struggled. Egyptian records describe groups arriving by land and sea, and their identities remain debated. This uncertainty has made them irresistible to people who suspect a deeper lost history. Some imagine that these groups included refugees or warriors from a shattered Western civilization. Others see them as displaced peoples created by famine, political failure, and regional instability. The Atlantis connection is speculative, but the mood is powerful. Here we have movement across the sea, collapsing powers, confused records, and survivors entering history under names that still puzzle us. If a great maritime culture had broken apart, this is the kind of chaos it might leave behind. The Sea Peoples do not prove Atlantis. They show how quickly a connected world can unravel, and how later generations can inherit only fragments. Tartessos has been called the Western Kingdom behind Atlantis. In the far west of the ancient Mediterranean, Tartessos appears like a half-lit kingdom in the records. It was associated with southern Iberia, river routes, metals, wealth, and contact with Phoenician traders. For Atlantis hunters, that is an exciting combination. It places a rich civilization near the Atlantic side of the known world, close to the area many people connect with Plato's geography. Tartessos may not have been a single city in the way later readers imagine. It may have been a kingdom, a region, or a cultural network that outsiders only partly understood. That uncertainty makes it even more fascinating. A wealthy Western power could easily grow in the Greek imagination after passing through travelers and storytellers. Some people think Plato turned echoes of Tartessos into something grander and older. It offers a grounded possibility. Maybe Atlantis was not fantasy. Maybe it was a real Western civilization magnified by time. Ancient Cadiz sits near waters often linked to Atlantis' searches. Few places feel more suitable for an Atlantis trail than the area around Cadiz. It stands near the meeting place of the Mediterranean and the Atlantic, where ancient sailors moved between familiar waters and the wider ocean. The city has deep roots in Phoenician trade, which gives the region a strong connection to long-distance seafaring and Western wealth. For anyone following Plato's clue about a distant maritime power, this coastline becomes difficult to ignore. The land and sea have also changed over time. Islands, channels, marshes, and shorelines have shifted, which means the ancient landscape was not identical to the modern one. That matters in a mystery built around disappearance. Some people imagine a lost settlement, harbor, or sacred center hidden beneath mud and water nearby. Others see Cadiz as only a gateway, not the prize itself. Either way, it remains one of the great real-world doorways into the Atlantis search. The marshes of Doñana have revealed strange circular markings from above. In southern Spain, the wetlands of Doñana have become famous among Atlantis seekers because of shapes noticed through aerial images and remote surveys. Some of these patterns appear circular or geometric, which instantly attracts attention because Plato described a capital arranged in rings. The setting is also important. Marshland can bury old landscapes under sediment, water, and vegetation. A place that once held channels, settlements, or ceremonial structures might later become nearly invisible from the ground. That possibility is thrilling. Instead of imagining Atlantis at the bottom of the deep Atlantic, this theory places it beneath a shifting wetland near the ancient Western Gateway. Skeptics warn that natural processes, farming marks, old waterways, and unrelated ruins can create misleading shapes. That caution is fair. Yet the mystery survives because the landscape itself feels unstable and secretive. Doñana offers a different kind of Atlantis, not swallowed by the ocean, but hidden under layers of earth and marsh. Some satellite images appear to show buried rings in southern Spain. Modern Atlantis hunting often begins not with a shovel, but with a screen. Satellite images allow people to notice patterns that are difficult to see while standing on the land itself. In southern Spain, possible ring shapes and buried outlines have drawn attention from those looking for Plato's famous circular city. The idea feels exciting because it brings ancient mystery into the age of remote sensing. A legend once preserved in a Greek dialogue is now being compared with marks in soil, vegetation, elevation, and water flow. Of course, images from above can deceive the eye. A circle may come from natural drainage. A line may come from farming. A pattern may be real, but not Atlantean. Still, this is how many discoveries begin, with someone noticing that the land looks wrong in an interesting way. The Spanish satellite theories keep the search active because they suggest Atlantis may not be gone, only covered. The Richat structure has become a modern Atlantis obsession. The Richat structure in Mauritania looks almost impossible from above. It appears as a huge set of nested rings in the Sahara, like a giant circular mark pressed into the earth. That image alone has made it a favorite among modern Atlantis enthusiasts. It resembles the shape many people imagine when they hear Plato's description of a ringed capital. The location is surprising because it sits far from the sea today. Yet that has not stopped speculation. Some point to ancient climate changes, old waterways, possible coastlines, and the idea that North Africa once looked very different. Geologists generally explain the formation as natural. Even so, the fascination is easy to understand. Most Atlantis candidates require imagination before they become visually convincing. The Richat structure delivers the visual shock first. It looks like a clue before anyone says a word. That is why it has become one of the Internet Age's most magnetic Atlantis theories. Its circular shape strongly resembles Plato's description of the capital. The power of the Richat theory comes from a simple visual comparison. Plato described a central city arranged in rings, and the Richat structure presents ring after ring on a scale that can be seen from space. For some people, that resemblance feels too strange to dismiss. They imagine water once filling the circular gaps, with canals, harbors, and a central sacred district at the heart. The problems are serious. The formation is much larger than the usual reading of Plato's measurements, and accepted evidence does not show a lost city there. Yet alternative theories often begin where scale, translation, and landscape change are open to interpretation. Could Plato's numbers have been altered? Could people have occupied only part of the formation? Could the rings have been natural features adapted by humans? None of this is proven, but the shape keeps asking questions. It turns a geological wonder into one of the most recognizable modern symbols of Atlantis. The Sahara was once wetter than many people imagine. The modern desert can mislead the imagination. It feels permanent, empty, and hostile, but ancient North Africa passed through greener periods when lakes, rivers, animals, and human communities existed in places that now look barren. Rock art preserves scenes of swimmers, cattle, and wildlife, which proves that the landscape once supported a very different kind of life. This matters for Atlantis's theories because it changes what seems possible. A region that now appears disconnected from water may once have contained roots, settlements, and cultural memories tied to vanished lakes or flowing rivers. Some people use this greener Sahara to argue for a forgotten civilization hidden under sand. Others accept the climate evidence while rejecting any Atlantis connection. The stronger point is broader and more mysterious. Landscapes can transform so completely that later generations misread them. The Sahara may not be Atlantis, but it reminds us that the past sometimes wore a face we would barely recognize. Ancient rivers may have connected North Africa to forgotten coastal cultures. Waterways are the secret roads of early history. When rivers flowed through regions that are now dry, they could have carried people, goods, stories, and technologies between inland communities and coastal settlements. North Africa's ancient river systems may have supported movement on a scale that is difficult to picture today. This opens an intriguing possibility for Atlantis' speculation. Perhaps the mystery should not be imagined as one isolated city, but as a network of places connected by water, trade, and memory. Some people think dried channels and buried basins may hide evidence of cultures that disappeared when the climate shifted. More cautious interpretations still allow something remarkable. A changing landscape can erase the pathways that once made a civilization possible. When the rivers vanished, the map of human connection vanished with them. In that sense, North Africa offers a powerful lesson. A lost world does not always sink beneath the sea. Sometimes the water simply leaves. The Azores sit on underwater terrain that fuels Atlantis' speculation. The Azores occupy a lonely and dramatic position in the Atlantic. Rising from deep ocean, these volcanic islands feel like surviving peaks from some older hidden world. That impression has made them a favorite in theories that place Atlantis beyond the Western Gateway. The surrounding seafloor is rugged, complex, and difficult for most people to imagine clearly. To the speculative mind, that underwater landscape seems capable of hiding remnants of vanished land. Some have suggested the islands may be the last exposed traces of a larger territory. Conventional geology does not support a recently sunken continent there, but the location keeps the dream alive. It satisfies the ancient clue in a way Mediterranean theories do not. It places Atlantis in the open Atlantic, where the name itself seems to belong. The Azores show how geography can feed legend. Even without ruins, their isolation gives the story scale, distance, and the feeling of something just out of reach. Some believe the mid-Atlantic ridge hides shattered island remnants. The Atlantic seafloor is not a flat, empty plain. It contains mountains, fractures, volcanic zones, and a long ridge where the Earth is actively changing. That hidden landscape has inspired people to imagine lost islands destroyed by geological forces or drowned after ancient sea level changes. In this version, Atlantis does not need to be a neat continent that sank like a stone. It could have been a chain of islands, a volcanic platform, or a region where habitable land once stood higher above the water. Mainstream science does not support the classic idea of an advanced Atlantic continent disappearing in recent human memory. Yet the ridge still gives the legend a dramatic stage. It is vast, mostly unseen, and difficult to investigate in detail. For Atlantis believers, that matters. The greatest ruins would not be in a museum case or a desert trench. They would be lying in darkness among underwater mountains. Ocean depth makes a sunken Atlantic continent extremely difficult to prove. The deepest problem with Atlantis may be the depth itself. A lost city in shallow water can be searched, mapped, photographed, and debated. A drowned continent in the open Atlantic is a much harder claim. The ocean is immense, dark, pressured, and expensive to explore. If a huge landmass had disappeared recently, geologists would expect clear signs in the structure of the crust. That is why many researchers reject the literal sunken continent version. Yet this difficulty has not ended the mystery. It has changed the shape of it. Some people now look for smaller islands, drowned coastlines, or memories of post-Ice Age flooding instead. Others argue that the ocean has been too incompletely explored for certainty to feel satisfying. Both views feed the legend in different ways. The sea is not a blank space, but it is also not easily forced to give answers. Atlantis survives because the ocean is both evidence and hiding place. Bimini Road still divides skeptics and Atlantis believers. In the shallow waters near Bimini, rows of large limestone blocks have become one of the most famous underwater features in Atlantis's lore. To believers, the stones look arranged, almost like a road, wall, pier, or ceremonial approach. To skeptics, they are natural beach rock that fractured into regular shapes. The disagreement has lasted because the site is visually persuasive without being conclusive. Clear water and block-like stones create exactly the kind of scene people expect from a lost civilization. The Bahamas connection adds even more intrigue, especially because this region was tied to prophecies about Atlantean discoveries. Yet nature can create patterns that look planned, and human expectation can turn ordinary geology into architecture. That tension is the whole fascination. Bimini Road does not settle the Atlantis question. It keeps it alive. It offers just enough structure to excite the imagination and just enough doubt to prevent the mystery from closing. Edgar Cayce predicted Atlantean records beneath the waters near Bimini. The modern Atlantis myth would not feel the same without Edgar Cayce. His readings described Atlantis as A technologically advanced civilization with spiritual knowledge, internal conflict, and a tragic fall caused by misused power. He also spoke of discoveries near the Bahamas, which later made Bimini an almost sacred location for believers. When stone formations were reported underwater, many people saw them as a possible fulfillment of those predictions. This moved Atlantis beyond archaeology and into prophecy, psychic memory, and hidden wisdom. Skeptics see no reliable evidence that Case accessed ancient history, yet his influence is undeniable. He gave Atlantis a detailed, emotional world, with energy systems, migrations, temples, records, and survivors. That version captured the imagination of people who felt the standard historical explanation was too small. Case's Atlantis is not merely a ruined island. It is a lost chapter of human potential, remembered through visions and searched for beneath tropical water. The Bahamas became a hotspot for psychic Atlantis theories. The Bahamas offer a setting that almost invites wonder. Shallow blue water, underwater stone formations, caves, reefs, and legends of hidden records all help turn the region into a modern Atlantis dreamscape. After Case's predictions gained attention, seekers began to look at the islands not only as geography, but as a spiritual target. Some imagined temples below the sand. Others believed crystals, archives, or energy devices might remain buried beneath the sea floor. This is not the same as conventional archaeology, but it speaks to a major part of the Atlantis tradition. For many people, the lost civilization represents forgotten knowledge rather than only lost buildings. The Bahamas became important because they seemed to offer access to that knowledge. Skeptics point to natural geology and wishful thinking. Believers feel that the landscape itself carries clues. The islands remain a place where vacation water and cosmic mystery seem to overlap in a strangely persuasive way. Cuba's offshore formations sparked rumors of a submerged ancient city. Reports of unusual shapes on the seafloor near Cuba created a wave of excitement among people interested in lost civilizations. Sonar images were described as showing geometric features at great depth, and that detail made the claims especially dramatic. If the shapes were artificial, they would imply a civilization far older than accepted history allows for that region. That possibility was enough to pull Atlantis into the conversation almost immediately. The Caribbean suddenly became another possible theater for a drowned ancient world. The claims remain uncertain, and no accepted proof of a submerged city has emerged. Depth, image interpretation, access, and follow-up research all make the story difficult to resolve. Yet it remains fascinating because it reveals how hungry people are for evidence beneath the sea. A few strange patterns on a sonar scan can reopen the oldest questions. How much of human history lies underwater? How much has simply not been reached yet? The Yonaguni monument inspired bold comparisons with lost Atlantean engineering. Off the coast of Japan, a massive underwater formation has become famous for its terraces, straight edges, steps, and dramatic angles. Many geologists argue that natural rock fractures explain the structure. Others believe at least parts of it look modified by human hands. Although Yonaguni is far from Plato's Atlantis, it belongs to the same larger mystery. It asks whether ancient coastal cultures may have existed before rising seas covered their traces. For people drawn to lost civilization theories, that question is irresistible. The monument looks like architecture when seen from certain angles, especially underwater, where scale and shadow make everything feel stranger. It may be natural. It may be partly worked. It may be a lesson in how easily the eye finds design. Whatever the truth, Yonaguni has become a symbol of hidden prehistory. It reminds us that the sea does not only preserve shipwrecks, it may also preserve arguments. Malta's ancient temples suggest forgotten builders in the central Mediterranean. Malta's prehistoric temples are astonishing because they belong to a world older than many people expect. Huge stones were arranged into complex sacred spaces long before the famous classical civilizations dominated the Mediterranean. These builders left monuments that feel planned, ritualized, and technically impressive, yet much about them remains uncertain. For Atlantis speculation, Malta matters because it proves that the central Mediterranean held advanced building traditions in deep antiquity. The islands also contain strange cart ruts cut into stone, which have inspired debate about transport, erosion, and lost practical knowledge. Mainstream archaeology explains Malta without needing Atlantis, but the atmosphere is still powerful. A small island group held a remarkable culture, and that culture eventually changed or disappeared. That pattern echoes through the larger Atlantis mystery. If Malta could hold such ancient achievements, then what other island cultures might have existed nearby? What was lost to erosion, sea level rise, or simple forgetting? Sardinia has been proposed as Atlantis by several alternative researchers. Sardinia offers a different kind of Atlantis candidate, built not on one dramatic crater or underwater wall, but on a landscape filled with ancient stone towers. The Nuragic civilization left thousands of these structures across the island, and their number alone suggests organization on a remarkable scale. Some people connect Sardinia with sea power, Bronze Age upheaval, and memories of a large island society struck by disaster or invasion. Its position also matters. The island sits along routes between the western and eastern Mediterranean, which could have made it important for trade, movement, and conflict. Critics argue that the theory requires forcing Plato's details into a place they do not naturally fit. Still, Sardinia keeps attracting attention because it feels underexplained to the casual observer. Those towers look like the remains of a society with purpose, coordination, and strength. In the Atlantis imagination, Sardinia becomes a rugged kingdom whose full story may still be incomplete. Cyprus theories link Atlantis to copper, trade, and collapsed Bronze Age networks. Cyprus was a major source of copper, and copper was essential to the Bronze Age world. That makes the island far more important than its size might suggest. Control of metals could bring wealth, influence, and strategic value. Ships carried copper outward, and in return brought goods, ideas, and political connections. This gives Cyprus a different Atlantis angle. Instead of focusing on a city sinking into the sea, the theory looks at a resource-rich island caught inside a vast trade system that eventually broke apart. Plato described Atlantis as wealthy and connected to unusual metals, which makes the comparison tempting. Cyprus also experienced turmoil during the wider Bronze Age collapse, when many societies around the eastern Mediterranean were shaken. The match is not exact, but the pattern is fascinating. A powerful island built on trade can seem permanent until the network around it fails. Then wealth becomes vulnerability, and memory turns into legend. Ireland has appeared in theories about Plato's mysterious western island. Ireland enters the Atlantis discussion through bold geography and ancient atmosphere. It lies in the Atlantic west of the classical Mediterranean world, which makes it tempting for those who read Plato's western location in a broad way. Some theories suggest that distant reports of a large island beyond known waters may have been misunderstood, enlarged, or folded into the Atlantis story. Ireland also has prehistoric monuments that add weight to the imagination. Newgrange and other sites show impressive planning, construction, and skywatching, long before Greece's classical age. Its mythology contains otherworldly islands, vanished peoples, and strange realms across the sea. None of this proves an Atlantis connection, but it gives the idea a haunting texture. Ireland represents the possibility that Greek knowledge of the far west was fragmentary and distorted. A real island could become legendary through distance. A known land could become unknown again when described by people who had never reached it. Doggerland proves large inhabited lands really vanished beneath rising seas. Between Britain and continental Europe, there once stretched a broad landscape of rivers, marshes, animals, and human communities. Today, that world lies beneath the North Sea. Doggerland matters because it proves that drowned lands are not just mythology. They are part of human prehistory. People likely lived, hunted, traveled, and told stories in places that later disappeared under rising water after the Ice Age. This does not make Doggerland the Atlantis of Plato, but it changes how we hear flood legends. A vanished homeland can be real. A coastline can retreat until memory turns into myth. Archaeological finds from the seabed give this lost landscape a physical presence. Tools, bones, and environmental evidence show that the modern map is only the latest version of a changing world. Atlantis may be impossible in its grandest form, but Doggerland reminds us that the sea has swallowed places where human life once unfolded. Sunderland shows how entire ancient worlds can disappear underwater. Southeast Asia once looked very different. During periods of lower sea level, large areas now beneath water formed a vast connected landscape. This lost region is often called Sunderland, and it may have supported rivers, forests, coastlines, migrations, and human communities before the sea rose. Its importance to the Atlantis mystery is indirect but powerful. It shows that the ocean has not merely taken small shorelines. It has covered enormous habitable worlds. Some people believe memories of such flooding may have helped create ancient flood traditions across different cultures. Others go further and imagine advanced coastal societies erased before written history began. Conventional research does not identify Sunderland with Atlantis, but it strengthens the broader possibility that major chapters of human life are underwater. When land disappears, evidence becomes difficult to find, and memory becomes fragile. Sunderland teaches that the past was not only buried under soil. In many places, it was buried under the sea. Antarctica theories imagine Atlantis buried beneath impossible southern ice. This is one of the most extreme Atlantis ideas, and that is exactly why it fascinates people. Instead of searching near Spain, Crete, or the Bahamas, this theory looks to the frozen south. Some claim that Antarctica may have been mapped or remembered from a time before it was covered by ice, and that a lost civilization could be hidden beneath the frozen surface. The idea often connects to ancient maps, pole shift speculation, and forbidden history. Conventional science does not support an Atlantean civilization there within the human timeline, but the image is unforgettable. A lost world under ice feels like the ultimate secret. It is remote, protected, and almost unreachable. Antarctica also remains difficult for ordinary people to imagine because so much of it is hidden beneath a frozen shell. The theory may be highly speculative, but it captures one of Atlantis's deepest appeals. The greatest answers may be stored where almost no one can look. The Piri Reis map became central to fringe Atlantis speculation. This Ottoman map from the early 16th century became famous because some writers believed it preserved knowledge from much older sources. Its unusual coastlines and layered history made it a perfect object for people who suspect that ancient navigators knew more than official history allows. In the Atlantis tradition, maps are especially powerful because they suggest memory can survive without words. A coastline, a shape, or a misplaced landmass can feel like a coded message from a vanished age. Some people have argued that the map points toward forgotten exploration, inherited sea charts, or even knowledge passed down from a lost civilization. More cautious readings connected to known navigation and map-making of its own time. Yet the fascination remains. The map invites a thrilling possibility. Maybe Atlantis did not leave only ruins. Maybe it left fragments of knowledge, copied and recopied until their original meaning was almost forgotten. Ancient sea level rise may explain memories of drowned homelands. After the last ice age, the world's coastlines changed dramatically. Lands that once held camps, paths, river mouths, and early settlements were slowly covered as the oceans rose. For people living through that change, the loss would have felt personal. A hunting ground could vanish. A sacred place could become a reef. A childhood shore could move beyond reach. Over many generations, such losses may have become stories about floods, sunken lands, and worlds taken by the sea. This does not prove that Atlantis existed exactly as described, but it gives the legend a believable emotional root. Human beings remember catastrophe through story, especially when the physical evidence disappears beneath water. Some people think Atlantis may be one grand version of this global memory. Not one place, perhaps, but many drowned places combined into a single, unforgettable symbol. The ocean becomes a library where the oldest chapters are hardest to read. Plato's canals suggest a society obsessed with planning and control. The waterways in the Atlantis account are not casual details. They suggest engineering, administration, trade, defense, and authority, arranged into one controlled system. Canals would have moved ships, directed water, divided districts, and displayed power. A ruler who commands water also commands movement, food, labor, and access. That makes the city feel less like a fantasy palace and more like an organized state with practical ambitions. Some people see these canals as evidence that Plato was imagining the perfect opposite of natural simplicity. Others wonder whether he was preserving memories of real hydraulic works from older cultures. Ancient societies often revealed their genius through water management. Egypt, Mesopotamia, and later Rome all depended on channels, drains, aqueducts, and managed landscapes. Atlantis fits into that larger pattern, but with a stranger atmosphere. Its canals seem to turn the whole capital into a machine. Beautiful, efficient, and perhaps dangerously controlled from the center outward. The capital's ringed design may encode symbolic sacred geometry. The circular plan of Atlantis has always felt like more than architecture. Rings can protect, separate, measure, and sanctify. A central island surrounded by alternating bands of land and water creates a pattern that draws the eye inward, as if power itself has a shape. In many ancient traditions, circles were linked with harmony, heavens, cycles, and divine order. That makes the design feel ceremonial as well as practical. Some people believe Plato used the layout to express a spiritual idea. Others imagine an older tradition of city planning based on cosmic principles, where the ruler's palace stood at the meeting point between earth, sea, and sky. The design may also suggest hierarchy. Common life remains outside, while sacred authority sits within guarded circles. Whether real or invented, the plan is unforgettable, because it feels intentionally charged. Atlantis becomes not just a city, but a diagram of how a civilization understood the universe. Orichalcum was Atlantis's mysterious metal of wealth and wonder. Among the treasures described in the Atlantis account, this strange metal shines brightest in the imagination. It was said to gleam with a fiery quality and to be highly valued by the island's rulers. That single substance has inspired endless guesses. Some think it may have been a known alloy, such as a copper and zinc mixture. Others imagine a rare metal, a sacred material, or a technological secret later lost. The mystery matters because metals are more than decoration in ancient worlds. They mean mining, trade, military strength, craft skill, and ritual prestige. If Atlantis possessed a prized material that outsiders barely understood, then its wealth would have seemed almost supernatural. Alternative theories often turn orichalcum into evidence of advanced knowledge, perhaps even energy technology. More grounded interpretations see it as an exotic luxury remembered through poetic language. Either way, the metal gives Atlantis a physical shimmer, as if the lost empire still glows beneath the story. No one agrees what orichalcum actually was. The disagreement is part of the fascination. A single ancient word has become a doorway into metallurgy, myth, trade, and speculation. Some identify it with brass or another copper-based alloy. Others believe it referred to a naturally occurring mineral with an unusual color. A few imagine something far stranger, perhaps a substance whose properties were forgotten after the civilization fell. The uncertainty exists because ancient names for materials did not always match modern chemistry. A metal could be described by color, source, value, or symbolic meaning, rather than by its precise composition. In the Atlantis story, it covered important parts of the sacred center, which makes it seem both decorative and holy. That encourages bigger theories. Was it simply impressive to look at? Was it connected to royal legitimacy? Was it a hint of lost science? The truth may be ordinary, but the ambiguity keeps the word alive. It sounds like treasure and evidence at once. Atlantis supposedly had elephants, which complicates every location theory. This detail catches many people by surprise. Plato says the island had enough animals to support large numbers of elephants, which is not easy to fit into every proposed location. Elephants immediately push the imagination toward Africa, Asia, or a much larger and warmer land than many Atlantis candidates provide. They also make small island theories harder, unless the line is symbolic, mistaken, or inherited from stories about a broader empire. Some people use the elephants to support North African locations. Others see them as a sign that the description gathered details from different places before becoming a single legend. There is also another possibility. Ancient writers sometimes used impressive animals to show abundance, wealth, and exotic scale. In that reading, elephants make Atlantis feel vast and fertile rather than providing a zoological clue. Still, the detail refuses to sit quietly. It is specific enough to matter and strange enough to disturb almost every simple answer. The island's fertile plain was measured with suspicious precision. Plato gives the agricultural heartland of Atlantis a strikingly ordered description, with dimensions, canals, and divisions that feel almost administrative. This is not merely a vague paradise full of abundance. It is a managed landscape, measured and organized for production. That precision makes the account feel unusually grounded. A fertile plain would be the economic engine of the empire, feeding people, supporting armies, and generating wealth. Some readers see these measurements as fictional world-building designed to make the story convincing. Others wonder whether they preserve memories of real surveys, irrigation plans, or land divisions from an ancient kingdom. The detail also reveals something about power. A society that measures land so carefully is a society that taxes, stores, commands, and plans. Atlantis becomes impressive not only because it had temples and ships, but because it could organize nature itself. The mystery is whether those numbers came from imagination, memory, or a lost record. Plato described hot and cold springs inside the royal city. This small detail gives the capital a surprisingly real atmosphere. Hot springs suggest geothermal activity, which immediately fits several volcanic island theories. Cold springs point to freshwater management, comfort, and urban planning. Together, they make the royal center feel luxurious and unusual. Bathing facilities, sacred pools, and controlled water sources were important in many ancient cultures, because water belonged to health, ritual, status, and purification. Some people read the springs as another clue that Atlantis stood in a volcanic region, perhaps near thermal activity like that found in parts of the Aegean or Atlantic islands. Others see them as symbolic gifts from Poseidon, expressing the wealth of a place favored by divine power. Either way, they add texture that feels difficult to ignore. A fictional city can have gold walls, but springs are practical. They suggest daily life, engineering, pleasure, and a landscape shaped by forces still moving underground. Atlantean kings gathered for sacred rituals involving bulls and judgment. The royal ceremonies in the story are among its strangest details. The kings did not simply rule from palaces. They met at appointed times, made offerings, swore oaths, and judged one another according to ancient laws. The presence of bulls gives the scene a powerful Bronze Age feeling, because bull symbolism was important in several Mediterranean cultures. Minoan art famously includes bull leaping and ritual imagery, which makes this detail especially intriguing for those who connect Atlantis with Crete or the Aegean. Yet the ceremony also serves a deeper purpose. It shows a civilization trying to bind power to sacred responsibility. Kings are dangerous if they answer only to themselves. In Atlantis, at least at first, authority was restrained by ritual memory. Some people see this as political philosophy. Others hear an echo of real ancient rites. The tragedy is that the system eventually fails, and sacred law gives way to ambition. Poseidon's temple was said to blaze with precious metals. At the center of Atlantis stood a sanctuary designed to overwhelm the senses. Gold, silver, and strange shining materials covered sacred surfaces, turning worship into a display of royal wealth. In the ancient world, temples were not only religious buildings, they were treasuries, political symbols, and statements about a city's relationship with divine power. A temple of Poseidon makes perfect sense in a maritime empire. It tells every visitor that the sea god stands behind the throne. Some people imagine the description as pure exaggeration, meant to show corruption through luxury. Others wonder whether it reflects memories of real temple complexes, where metal plating, statues, and ritual objects created a dazzling effect. The important point is that the sanctuary sits at the story's emotional center. Atlantis is not presented as merely rich. It is rich in a sacred way, as if its wealth came from the god who would later allow the sea to take it. The royal palace stood at the center of concentric power. The layout of Atlantis makes authority visible. At the middle sat the palace and sacred district, surrounded by rings of land and water that separated ruler from subject, center from edge, and privilege from ordinary life. This arrangement feels almost theatrical. Anyone approaching the rulers would move through layers, crossing bridges and canals before reaching the heart. That journey itself would teach a lesson about distance and control. Some people see the design as practical defense. Others view it as a symbol of hierarchy, where power becomes more exclusive the closer one moves inward. The structure also mirrors a psychological idea. A civilization can organize itself around a sacred center, but that center can become isolated from the people it claims to serve. In the Atlantis legend, the palace is not just a residence. It is the focus of wealth, ritual, ancestry, and command. When corruption reaches the center, the whole pattern is doomed. Atlantis had bridges that connected its rings like engineered arteries. The bridges are easy to overlook, but they make the city feel functional rather than decorative. Without them, the ringed capital would be beautiful but divided. With them, people, goods, soldiers, animals, and messages could move between zones. This detail suggests planning at the level of daily life. A maritime capital needs movement as much as defense. Bridges would control access while still allowing the system to breathe. They would also create choke points, ceremonies of entrance, and impressive processional routes. Some people imagine them as stone works of great technical skill. Others see them as part of Plato's idealized geometry, built to show how order can connect what water separates. The image is fascinating because it turns Atlantis into a living organism. The rings are not static walls. They are linked by passages, carrying the pulse of trade and command. A city like that would not only look astonishing, it would operate with disciplined intention. The harbor system suggested a navy of extraordinary scale. Atlantis was described with docks, canals, and spaces suited for large numbers of ships. That detail transforms it from a beautiful island into a strategic maritime machine. A major harbor system means shipbuilding, storage, repair, sailors, officers, merchants, guards, and an economy organized around movement by sea. It also implies ambition. A civilization does not build such capacity unless it expects to project power outward. Some people compare this to known ancient naval states, where control of ports could decide wealth and survival. Others imagine something even greater, a lost thalassocracy with roots reaching far beyond the Mediterranean. The harbor system is important because it provides a practical reason Atlantis mattered. Its danger came from mobility. It could gather resources, launch fleets, and appear on distant shores. Whether Plato invented the system or inherited a memory of one, he understood something timeless. Whoever commands the harbor often commands the horizon. Plato described an empire strong enough to threaten ancient Athens. The conflict in the story is not small. Atlantis is presented as a power capable of challenging the ancestors of Athens and pushing toward domination. This creates a dramatic contrast between two visions of society. On one side stands a wealthy imperial force with ships, resources, and expansionist desire. On the other stands an idealized Athens that resists conquest through courage and discipline. For Plato, this may have served a political purpose. He could use Atlantis as a mirror, showing what happens when power loses virtue. Yet the scale of the threat also fuels speculation. Why give the enemy such grandeur unless the story drew from older memories of real conflict? Ancient peoples often remembered wars through mythic exaggeration, turning rival kingdoms into giants. The Atlantean Empire may be a philosophical invention, a distorted historical enemy, or something between the two. Its role is clear. It makes the lost island dangerous, not merely mysterious. Ancient Athens defeating Atlantis may hide a political lesson. The victory of Athens is one of the most revealing parts of the legend. Plato was not simply describing a disaster. He was contrasting two kinds of civilization. Atlantis had wealth, naval power, and imperial reach, but it had become morally weakened. Early Athens, in the story, was disciplined, balanced, and willing to defend others. That looks like a lesson about character rather than geography. A smaller but virtuous society defeats a larger, corrupted one. This would have mattered deeply in Greek political thought, where questions of justice, luxury, war, and civic order were constantly debated. Yet the lesson does not erase the mystery. Ancient teaching stories often borrowed from real events because memory gives moral arguments weight. Perhaps Athens never defeated Atlantis as described. Perhaps the battle compresses older conflicts into symbolic form. Either way, the story warns that power alone is not strength. A civilization can conquer seas and still lose itself. The story may be philosophy disguised as forgotten history. This possibility is one of the most elegant explanations. Plato often used dialogues, myths, and imagined examples to explore difficult ideas. Atlantis may function the same way. It gives readers a dramatic world where politics, morality, wealth, war, and divine order can be tested. By presenting the tale as ancient history, Plato makes the lesson feel heavier. A warning from the past has more authority than an abstract argument. Still, the disguise may not be simple fiction. Some people believe Plato could have wrapped real memories inside a philosophical frame. A historical disaster, a powerful sea culture, or a foreign war story might have been reshaped to serve a deeper point. That is what makes the account so difficult to classify. It behaves like myth, history, and philosophy at the same time. Atlantis may be a lesson wearing the clothing of a report, or a report transformed into a lesson. Atlantis could have been invented to explain moral corruption and collapse. A completely invented Atlantis would still be extraordinary. It would mean Plato created one of the most enduring lost worlds in human imagination as a tool for thinking about decline. In that reading, the island begins noble and blessed, then slowly becomes greedy, aggressive, and spiritually degraded. Its destruction is not random. It is the final consequence of losing balance. This makes Atlantis a kind of civilization-sized parable. The more dazzling the empire becomes, the more dangerous its pride appears. The temples, metals, canals, and armies are not evidence of greatness alone. They are also signs of temptation. Some people resist this explanation because the details feel too specific. Yet invention does not have to be careless. A brilliant writer can create a setting that feels real because it is built from familiar pieces of history. The mystery then changes shape. Atlantis may reveal less about a lost island and more about the repeating weakness of powerful societies. Yet Plato included details that feel strangely practical and grounded. This is the problem that keeps believers interested. If Atlantis were only a moral fable, why include so much logistical texture? There are measurements, canals, bridges, springs, metals, agricultural divisions, military numbers, and political arrangements. These are not the usual features of a misty fairyland. They sound like the notes of someone trying to describe a functioning society. Of course, realistic details can make fiction persuasive. Plato was more than capable of that. Yet the grounded quality creates a sensation that the story may contain inherited material. Perhaps he had access to a tradition with practical fragments attached. Perhaps older memories of ports, planes, and rituals were fitted into a philosophical design. The question is not whether every detail is accurate. The question is why the account feels so textured. Atlantis endures because it is not vague enough to dismiss easily. It has the grain of administration, architecture, and remembered place. The Atlantis account names specific people, places, and measurements. Specificity gives the legend its unusual force. The story does not merely say there was once a lost land beyond the sea. It includes named figures, a chain of transmission, geographic markers, dimensions, divine ancestry, and descriptions of institutions. These details create the feeling of a record, even if the record itself remains debated. A name can anchor imagination. A measurement can invite testing. A place marker can launch expeditions. That is why Atlantis has produced so many theories, while other mythical lands remain mostly symbolic. Plato gave searchers enough handles to grab. Some people argue that this precision proves nothing, because fictional worlds can be detailed. Others answer that ancient fiction usually reveals itself differently, and that this account keeps behaving like disguised memory. The result is a rare kind of uncertainty. Atlantis is too legendary to accept without evidence, but too specific to file away as ordinary fantasy without a second thought. Critics wonder why Aristotle reportedly dismissed Atlantis so quickly. Aristotle was Plato's student, and that connection makes his reported skepticism especially interesting. Later tradition suggests he treated Atlantis as an invention, which has often been used as evidence against the story's reality. If anyone close to Plato's intellectual world could understand the purpose of the tale, surely Aristotle would be a strong witness. Yet even this point is not as simple as it looks. Reports about what Aristotle said come through later sources, and ancient scholarly opinions are often filtered by time, rivalry, and interpretation. Some people think his dismissal shows that Atlantis was understood early as philosophical fiction. Others wonder whether he rejected it because it did not fit his own views of nature, politics, or evidence. The fascination lies in the proximity. The mystery is not only what Plato meant. It is how his own intellectual heirs understood him. If they disagreed, then the uncertainty began almost at the source. Later, ancient writers treated Atlantis with both caution and fascination. After Plato, the story did not vanish. It moved through the ancient world as something intriguing, debatable, and difficult to classify. Some writers repeated or discussed it. Others seemed skeptical. A few connected it to geography, history, or older traditions. This mixed reception matters because it shows that Atlantis was not simply accepted as common knowledge, but it was not ignored either. It occupied a strange middle ground. Ancient readers were already asking some of the same questions people ask now. Was it a true account? Was it an allegory? Did it point to lands in the Atlantic? Did it preserve Egyptian memory? That early uncertainty is part of the legend's power. Atlantis was controversial long before modern documentaries, internet theories, and underwater searches. The debate itself is ancient. Every generation inherits not only Plato's story, but also the unresolved feeling that something about it refuses to settle. Proclus preserved comments from people who believed the story was real. Centuries after Plato, the philosopher Proclus discussed interpretations of Atlantis and recorded that some earlier figures treated the account as true. This is important because it shows that belief in the reality of Atlantis is not merely a modern invention. Ancient readers also wondered whether the story pointed to actual places and records. Some reportedly linked it with evidence from outside Plato, including traditions connected to islands in the Atlantic. That does not prove the case, but it widens the history of the debate. It means the question of Atlantis as real geography began in antiquity, not just in recent fringe culture. Proclus himself lived in a world where philosophy, myth, and sacred history were deeply connected. For him and others, a story could carry truth on more than one level. This makes his testimony fascinating. Atlantis was already becoming layered, with philosophy above, possible history beneath, and speculation moving quietly between them. The missing ending may have shaped Atlantis's power over imagination. An unfinished story can be more powerful than a completed one. When the account breaks off, the reader is left near the moment of judgment, with the civilization described, its decline established, and its fate hanging in the air. That gap has created centuries of imaginative pressure. A finished ending might have explained too much. It might have made Plato's purpose obvious. Instead, the silence leaves room for theories, reconstructions, and dreams of a lost final passage. Did the text remain unfinished because Plato abandoned it? Was the ending lost? Did later copying fail to preserve it? No answer has ended the debate. The missing portion also mirrors the subject itself. Atlantis is a story about disappearance, and the text disappears at the moment we most want clarity. That accident, if it was an accident, feels almost perfect. The legend became stronger because part of it sank out of reach. The destruction happened in a single day and night. This detail gives the fall of Atlantis its terrifying speed. Civilizations usually decline through complicated processes, but legends remember the moment when everything becomes undeniable. A single day and night suggests earthquakes, floods, fire, darkness, panic, and a total break between before and after. It is the kind of phrase that turns history into trauma. People who survive sudden disasters often describe time in sharp pieces. There was the world as it was, and then there was the world after. Some readers take the phrase literally. Others see it as dramatic compression, where many events are folded into one memorable span. Either way, the effect is unforgettable. Atlantis is not imagined as slowly fading into irrelevance. It is removed. That suddenness helps explain why the legend feels supernatural, even when natural explanations are offered. The faster the destruction, the more it seems like judgment, destiny, or a force beyond ordinary human control. That detail resembles real memories of sudden natural disasters. Human communities have always faced events that arrive faster than understanding. Volcanoes erupt. Seas surge inland. Ground splits. Rivers flood. Cities burn after tremors knock down walls and lamps. When a disaster is sudden enough, survivors may preserve it through stories that sound impossible to later generations. This is one reason Atlantis remains believable to many people. The account's compressed catastrophe resembles the way real trauma is remembered. A complex chain of geological events can become a single night. A regional collapse can become the fall of one city. A flood that destroys a coastal plain can become a sunken kingdom. None of this proves that Plato described one exact event, but it places the legend in a human pattern. Catastrophe becomes memory. Memory becomes warning. Warning becomes myth. The strange thing is that myth can sometimes preserve the shape of truth, even after the names, dates, and locations have drifted. Tsunamis may have helped create legends of swallowed cities. A tsunami is one of the few natural events that can make the sea feel alive with intention. Water withdraws, returns with force, crosses land, carries ships inland, destroys harbors, and leaves confusion behind. Ancient people without modern warning systems would have experienced such waves as overwhelming and almost unreal. Coastal communities are especially vulnerable because their wealth often depends on staying close to the water. This creates a tragic pattern. The same sea that feeds trade and communication can erase the places built beside it. Many Atlantis theories include tsunamis because they explain sudden destruction without needing a continent to sink whole. A wave can devastate a port, bury structures in sediment, and turn survivors into witnesses of a world taken by water. Over time, the story grows larger. The swallowed town becomes a drowned island. The drowned island becomes a lost empire. The physical event passes, but the memory keeps rising. Earthquakes in the Mediterranean have destroyed ports without warning. The Mediterranean may look calm on maps, but it sips across a restless geological zone. Earthquakes have damaged cities, changed coastlines, lowered or raised land, and triggered waves that struck shore communities. For ancient maritime societies, a ruined port could mean economic disaster. Ships could no longer dock. Warehouses could flood. Temples and quays could collapse. Trade routes could shift away almost overnight. This matters for Atlantis because Plato's catastrophe includes violent earth movement and water together. That combination is not fantasy in this region. It is part of the sea's real history. Some people think the legend may preserve memories of one dramatic event. Others believe it reflects a repeated pattern seen across many coastal cultures. A port can be powerful for centuries, then become unusable after a single geological shock. The ruins may sink, silt over, or be rebuilt under a new name. Later, Omir's story remains. Underwater archaeology has revealed many real lost coastal settlements. The search for Atlantis feels less impossible once we remember that many drowned places have turned out to be real. Ancient harbors, sunken towns, submerged roads, and coastal structures have been found beneath the sea in different parts of the world. These discoveries do not prove Plato's island, but they prove that the category itself is real. Human beings have always loved coasts. They offer fish, travel, trade, fresh water nearby, and contact with strangers. They are also vulnerable to subsidence, storms, erosion, and rising seas. That means a large part of early human history may sit underwater, especially in areas where people lived before modern sea levels stabilized. Some people use this to argue that the Atlantis mystery deserves more open-minded investigation. Skeptics answer that ordinary submerged settlements are not the same as a lost super-civilization. Both points can stand. The sea has hidden real worlds, and Atlantis remains the greatest question among them. Pavor Petri proves ancient cities can survive beneath shallow seas. Off the coast of Greece lies a submerged settlement that shows how real urban traces can remain underwater for thousands of years. Pavor Petri includes streets, building outlines, courtyards, and tombs, giving researchers a rare view of an ancient coastal community preserved below the surface. Its importance to the Atlantis conversation is not that it is Atlantis. It is that it demonstrates something essential. A city can slip into the sea and still leave a readable pattern behind. This makes the search for drowned places feel practical rather than purely romantic. Pavlo Petri also reminds us that ancient coastlines were dynamic. What looks like permanent land in one age may become seabed in another. For listeners drawn to Atlantis, the site offers a sober kind of wonder. It proves that underwater cities are not only fantasy. They can be mapped, studied, and touched. The lost world beneath the waves is sometimes not symbolic at all. Heraklion shows legendary places can become archaeological fact. For centuries, Heraklion seemed to belong more to ancient writing than to the physical world. Then underwater discoveries off Egypt revealed a real city beneath the sea, with statues, temples, inscriptions, ships, anchors, and traces of a once busy port. That matters deeply for the Atlantis imagination. It proves that a place can pass into legend, fade from everyday memory, and still exist in stone underwater. Heraklion was not Atlantis, but its rediscovery changed the emotional weight of the question. When people say a lost city sounds impossible, this example answers quietly from the seabed. Ancient coastlines shifted. Ground subsided. Harbors drowned. Mud covered what people once walked through. The result is a city hidden in plain sight, waiting for the right tools and patient searching. Atlantis remains unproven, but Heraklion reminds us that the sea has already returned places that once seemed almost imaginary. Baiae demonstrates how wealthy cities can sink slowly into the sea. The Roman resort of Baiae was once a place of luxury, villas, baths, parties, and political intrigue. Today, parts of it rest beneath the water near the Bay of Naples. Its story offers a different model for lost worlds. Not every drowned city vanishes in one violent night. Some sink gradually, because volcanic ground rises and falls over time. Streets, mosaics, rooms, and statues can slide below the surface while history continues above them. This is fascinating for Atlantis because it widens the possibilities. A city does not need to collapse like a trapdoor to become submerged. It can be lowered by the earth itself, inch by inch, until the sea takes possession. Some people look at Baiae and wonder how many ancient places were lost through slow geological motion rather than dramatic catastrophe. The lesson is subtle but powerful. A civilization can be swallowed without a single scream reaching the record. Canopus was once doubted before the seafloor gave up evidence. Ancient Canopus was connected with Egypt, temples, trade, and stories that seemed distant until underwater work helped reveal the wider sunken landscape near Alexandria. Its rediscovery matters because it shows how skepticism can be reasonable and still incomplete. A place may be mentioned in old texts, but without ruins in sight, confidence fades. Then mud shifts, divers descend, and carved stone appears beneath cloudy water. Suddenly, what seemed uncertain becomes measurable. This pattern is exactly why Atlantis continues to attract attention. People do not need every lost city to be Atlantis. They only need enough examples to show that the ancient world is not finished speaking. Canopus reminds us that coastlines near great civilizations can hide enormous evidence. Temples can sink. Ritual centers can disappear. Names can survive in writing while their streets vanish below the waves. The seafloor may not confirm every legend, but it has humbled certainty many times. Atlantis hunters often search where ancient trade routes once converged. A lost empire would not be found only by chasing dramatic shapes on maps. It would also be found by following movement. Trade routes reveal where wealth, ships, languages, metals, grain, stories, and rituals crossed paths. That is why many Atlantis theories cluster near gateways, straits, river mouths, island chains, and old harbor zones. A powerful maritime civilization would need access. It would sit where routes could be controlled, taxed, protected, or threatened. This approach makes the search feel more realistic. Instead of imagining a magical island alone in empty ocean, it asks where an ambitious sea power could actually thrive. Some people follow the tin routes, others follow copper, amber, silver, or sacred goods. The trail becomes less about a single ruin and more about a web of exchange. If Atlantis existed in any historical form, it probably touched other cultures. Trade may have carried both its wealth and its memory. Bronze Age collapse created chaos that could feed Atlantis's legends. Around the end of the Bronze Age, several powerful societies around the eastern Mediterranean weakened or fell within a turbulent period. Palaces burned, trade routes faltered, writing systems disappeared in some regions, and old authorities struggled to survive. The causes remain debated, with drought, migration, conflict, earthquakes, and internal fragility all entering the picture. For Atlantis, this era is fascinating because it shows how an interconnected world can break apart in ways later generations barely understand. A collapse like that produces refugees, rumors, broken records, and simplified memories. A trading partner becomes a vanished kingdom. A foreign power becomes a cautionary tale. A series of disasters becomes one grand fall. Some people believe Atlantis may be a mythic compression of this wider breakdown. Others see no direct connection. Still, the atmosphere fits. The Bronze Age collapse is proof that great systems can fail so completely that later people inherit confusion instead of explanation. Climate shocks may have broken kingdoms that seemed permanent. Civilizations often appear strongest just before the weather turns against them. A few bad seasons can become famine. Drought can weaken agriculture. Storms can damage ports. Cooler or drier periods can push people to migrate, raid, or abandon settlements. Climate does not need to destroy a kingdom by itself. It can apply pressure until politics, trade, and trust begin to crack. This matters for Atlantis because the legend is often imagined as a single spectacular destruction. but real collapse can begin quietly in fields, wells, forests, and harbors. Some people believe ancient climate shocks may have erased advanced coastal societies before their achievements were properly recorded. Others argue for more modest interpretations, where environmental stress helped turn thriving cultures into cautionary memories. Either way, the idea is gripping. A civilization may believe its walls, ships, and temples are permanent. Then rain patterns shift, food systems strain, and the world beneath the throne begins to move. Comet impact theories place Atlantis inside a global catastrophe story. Some of the boldest Atlantis theories connect the legend to a cosmic event. In this version, the fall of the lost civilization was not only a local earthquake or flood. It was part of a much larger catastrophe involving debris from space, fire in the sky, climate disruption, and sudden changes across the planet. This idea appeals to people who feel that ancient flood stories, burned landscapes, and unexplained cultural breaks may share one hidden cause. The evidence is debated, and many researchers remain cautious about sweeping claims. Yet the possibility is thrilling because it expands Atlantis from a drowned island into a witness of planetary shock. Imagine survivors watching the heavens turn dangerous, then trying to preserve what happened through myth. Over time, a global trauma might narrow into the story of one magnificent kingdom destroyed in a day and night. The theory is speculative, but it gives the legend a cosmic scale. Younger Dryas speculation pushes Atlantis into a much older world. The Younger Dryas period has become a major focus for people who believe civilization may have roots deeper than accepted history allows. It was a time of abrupt climate change near the end of the Ice Age, and some theories connect it with floods, extinctions, migrations, and possible lost cultures. When Atlantis is placed in this setting, the story becomes radically older. It is no longer a Bronze Age memory or a Mediterranean political lesson. It becomes the last echo of a prehistoric world that vanished before written records. This idea is controversial, but it has an obvious pull. Plato's very old date suddenly feels less like a mistake and more like a clue. Rising seas would have covered coastlines where people may have lived. Survivors could have carried fragments of knowledge into later regions. The mystery becomes enormous. Atlantis may not be behind history. It may be beneath the foundation of history itself. Göbekli Tepe changed assumptions about early civilizations' abilities. This ancient site in southeastern Turkey shocked many people because it showed monumental ritual construction far earlier than once expected for such complex work. Massive carved pillars, animal reliefs, and carefully arranged enclosures forced a rethinking of what hunter-gatherer communities could organize and build. For Atlantis speculation, the importance is indirect but powerful. It proves that the deep past can still surprise us. Things once considered too early or too advanced may turn out to be real. Some people use Göbekli Tepe as a sign that older lost knowledge may have existed before farming states became dominant. Mainstream interpretations do not require Atlantis, but the site still changes the mood of the debate. It weakens the lazy assumption that ancient people were always simple until civilization suddenly appeared. The past looks more inventive now. If one hidden chapter emerged from a hill, Atlantis believers wonder what chapters may be hidden beneath water. Ancient megaliths make some people reconsider Atlantis as inherited memory. Across the world, enormous stones stand in circles, temples, tombs, walls, and alignments that still provoke awe. Their builders often left no clear written explanation, which gives these places an open-ended power. People look at megaliths and ask how ancient communities organized the labor, knowledge, and purpose behind them. For Atlantis speculation, these monuments sometimes become clues in a larger pattern. Perhaps later cultures inherited techniques, astronomy, symbols, or sacred planning from an older source. Perhaps Atlantis was not a single place at all, but a memory of knowledge spreading after a forgotten collapse. This idea is not proven, and many megalithic sites have strong local explanations. Yet the emotional link is easy to understand. Stone monuments feel like messages from people who knew more than they told us. When their meanings are unclear, the imagination reaches for a missing teacher. Atlantis becomes one possible name for that lost inheritance. The Sphinx water erosion theory is often tied to Atlantis claims. One controversial idea argues that weathering on the Great Sphinx points to heavy rainfall and therefore to a much older origin than commonly accepted. This claim has been fiercely debated, but it has become important in alternative Atlantis circles because it suggests deep antiquity hidden inside a famous monument. If the Sphinx were older than the standard timeline allows, then Egypt might have inherited knowledge from an earlier civilization. For believers, that earlier source could be Atlantis or a related lost culture. The appeal is obvious. The Sphinx already feels like a guardian of secrets. Its silent face, ancient body, and uncertain symbolic meaning make it a perfect companion to the Atlantis legend. Skeptics explain the erosion differently and reject the older dating. Still, the theory persists because it connects two powerful mysteries. A lost island and an ancient monument become part of the same question. How far back does memory really go? Pyramid alignment theories sometimes fold Atlantis into lost knowledge traditions. The pyramids of Egypt have inspired countless theories about astronomy, geometry, mathematics, and hidden design. Some are careful observations. Others go much further, suggesting that the monuments encode knowledge from a vanished civilization. Atlantis often appears in these theories as the missing source. If the builders possessed advanced understanding of stars, measurements, and sacred proportions, some people ask whether that wisdom was inherited rather than invented locally. Mainstream Egyptology gives the pyramids an Egyptian context, grounded in kingship, religion, labor organization, and evolving tomb architecture. Yet the sense of mystery remains because the monuments are so exact, massive, and enduring. Their alignments made people feel that stone can carry intelligence across time. Atlantis becomes a way to explain that feeling. It offers a hidden origin for knowledge that seems too impressive to some modern eyes. Whether or not that is fair, the connection has become a major thread in lost civilization storytelling. Some believe Atlanteans carried astronomy to later civilizations. The sky is one of the oldest libraries humanity ever used. Stars helped people mark seasons, guide travel, plan rituals, and tell stories about order in the universe. In Atlantis theories, astronomy often becomes a kind of portable inheritance. If survivors escaped a destroyed civilization, they may not have carried buildings with them, but they could have carried star knowledge. They could teach calendars, align temples, preserve myths of constellations, and influence priesthoods in new lands. This idea helps explain why distant cultures sometimes seem to share an intense focus on the heavens. Mainstream scholars usually point to independent observation, because every ancient society lived beneath the same sky. Yet some people suspect a deeper transmission. Atlantis becomes a remembered school of the stars, a civilization whose greatest monuments were not only on Earth, but also in the patterns it taught others to read above. The idea is speculative, but wonderfully captivating. Others imagine Atlantis as a priesthood rather than a place. One of the most intriguing reinterpretations removes Atlantis from the map almost entirely. Instead of a single island, it becomes a lineage of knowledge keepers, navigators, astronomers, healers, or initiates. In this view, The real Atlantis may have been an order that survived catastrophe by moving through later civilizations under different names. Temples, myths, sacred geometry, flood stories, and star lore become traces of a hidden brotherhood rather than ruins of one city. This idea appeals because it solves a major problem. If the island cannot be found, perhaps the search has been too literal. The lost world may have lived in teachings, rituals, and symbols. Of course, this is difficult to prove. A priesthood can leave faint evidence and many false trails. Yet the concept fits the mysterious way Atlantis appears everywhere and nowhere. It becomes less a sunken land than a current of memory moving beneath official history. The Hall of Records legend connects Atlantis to hidden archives. Few Atlantis ideas are more tantalizing than the thought of a secret archive. The Hall of Records is imagined as a hidden chamber containing the preserved wisdom of a lost civilization. It is often linked with Egypt, especially the Sphinx or the Giza Plateau. The appeal is obvious. Ruins are powerful, but records would be explosive. They could name kings, describe technologies, explain migrations, and settle questions that have lasted for centuries. Some people believe such an archive was hidden by survivors who knew their world was ending. Others see the story as symbolic, representing wisdom buried inside myth rather than stone. No confirmed Atlantean archive has been found, but the idea endures because it gives the search a clear emotional target. Somewhere, perhaps, the lost civilization did not simply vanish. It prepared a message. The mystery is whether humanity has not found it or whether it would not recognize it yet. Case placed Atlantean wisdom beneath Egypt, Bimini, and the Yucatan. Edgar Cayce's readings gave Atlantis a geography of hidden knowledge spread across several regions. He spoke of records and remnants connected not only with the Bahamas, but also with Egypt and the Americas. This created an exciting web of possibility. Atlantis was no longer one ruined island waiting to be identified. It became a civilization whose survivors or records might have been scattered across the world. Egypt offered monuments and mystery. Bimini offered underwater promise. The Yucatan offered ancient American connections and sacred landscapes. For believers, this pattern suggested a deliberate preservation plan, almost like a backup system for lost wisdom. Skeptics see psychic claims and coincidence, yet the influence of this idea is enormous. It shaped modern Atlantis searching by encouraging people to look for links across oceans. Cayce turned the legend into a global treasure hunt, where the true evidence may be divided between distant places. The Yucatan has inspired theories about migrations after Atlantis fell. The Yucatan enters Atlantis' speculation through ruins, calendars, mythology, and the haunting idea of survivors crossing oceans after catastrophe. Some people imagine that refugees from a lost Atlantic civilization reached the Americas and influenced early sacred traditions. In this view, knowledge of astronomy, temple building, mathematics, or flood memory may have traveled with them. The theory is not accepted as conventional history, but it has long appealed to people who notice similarities between distant cultures and suspect contact behind them. The region itself invites wonder. Maya cities, cenotes, carved monuments, and complex timekeeping give the landscape a feeling of depth and intelligence. Atlantis becomes a bridge in the imagination, linking a drowned origin with later American civilizations. The more cautious explanation is that human societies can develop impressive ideas independently. Yet the migration theory survives because it offers a dramatic answer to a dramatic question. Where would the people of Atlantis have gone? Mayan and Egyptian similarities are sometimes explained through Atlantis' speculation. The comparison between ancient Egypt and the Maya has fascinated alternative thinkers for generations. Both cultures built monumental structures, used complex calendars, honored sacred kingship, developed symbolic writing, and watched the heavens with care. Mainstream scholars explain these similarities through parallel development, since humans facing similar needs can create similar solutions. Atlantis' speculation offers a more dramatic possibility. Perhaps both inherited fragments from an older source. Maybe survivors or knowledge keepers carried ideas across oceans after a catastrophe. This theory can be overextended, and many claim similarities collapse under closer study. Still, the basic fascination is understandable. When distant civilizations produce impressive architecture and cosmic order, people wonder whether there is a missing connection. Atlantis becomes the imagined center of a broken wheel, with spokes leading outward to Egypt, Mesoamerica, and other sacred landscapes. It is less a proven explanation than a story that tries to make global patterns feel connected. Native flood traditions are sometimes linked to a shared catastrophe memory. Many cultures preserve stories of great floods, water covering land, survivors escaping danger, or worlds remade after disaster. These traditions are diverse and should not be flattened into one simple tale. Yet their presence across distant peoples has often made listeners wonder whether deep memories of real environmental change survive in myth. In Atlantis speculation, flood traditions become possible echoes of a common trauma. Perhaps rising seas, tsunamis, river floods, or regional disasters left marks in many oral histories. Some people go further and imagine a single ancient catastrophe that scattered survivors across the world. More careful interpretation respects each tradition in its own cultural setting. Still, the connection remains emotionally powerful. Water is one of humanity's oldest fears and blessings. It gives life, then sometimes takes land away. Atlantis fits naturally into this family of stories because it is the great drowned civilization, the empire remembered through the language of overwhelming water. Greek flood myths may preserve older stories of vanished lands. Greek tradition did not contain only Atlantis. It also remembered destructive floods, heroic survivors, and ages of humanity lost before the present one. These stories suggest that the Greek imagination was already familiar with worlds being reset by water. That context matters. Atlantis may not have appeared in isolation. It may have belonged to a wider pattern of flood memory, where disaster explained why the past was broken and why knowledge disappeared. Some people think Greek myths preserved fragments from real prehistoric events around the Mediterranean, including earthquakes, tsunamis, and shoreline changes. Others see them as symbolic stories about renewal, punishment, and cosmic order. The fascination lies in how naturally Atlantis fits among them. A proud civilization falls. The sea covers the evidence. Later, people inherit warnings without full explanations. The mythic language may be grand, but the feeling underneath is human. Something was lost before anyone could write it clearly. Deucalion's flood creates an ancient Greek echo of worldwide destruction. In the Greek flood story of Deucalion, a devastating deluge wipes away an earlier human age, leaving survivors to begin again. This myth gives Atlantis a nearby companion in the ancient imagination. Both stories involve destruction by water, a moral dimension, and a break between one world and the next. That does not mean they describe the same event. Yet their overlap shows that Greek thought had room for deep catastrophe long before modern lost civilization theories. Some people believe such myths may preserve memories of real floods after the Ice Age or destructive regional events. Others read them as spiritual stories about renewal after corruption. What makes Deucalion important for Atlantis is the theme of reset. civilizations and peoples do not merely progress smoothly forward. They can be interrupted. Memory can be washed thin. A later world can stand on the remains of an earlier one and know almost nothing about it. Atlantis has been compared to the biblical world before the flood. Some interpretations connect Atlantis with the idea of an advanced world destroyed before a great flood. In that comparison, the lost island becomes part of a larger moral and historical pattern. A powerful civilization rises, becomes corrupt, and is removed by overwhelming water. The similarity is not exact, but it has fascinated writers who look for shared ancient memories beneath religious and mythic traditions. The world before the flood is often imagined as mysterious, long-lived, powerful, and spiritually dangerous. Atlantis carries a similar charge. It is wealthy, ancient, impressive, and doomed. Some people see both as echoes of a real prehistoric catastrophe. Others view them as separate moral stories shaped by different cultures. The connection remains compelling because it places Atlantis inside a universal question. Have there been earlier ages of humanity that ended so completely that later civilizations remembered them only through warnings? The answer depends on belief, evidence, and imagination. Medieval mapmakers and occult writers helped keep Atlantis alive. Atlantis did not remain frozen inside Plato's text. Over time, it wandered into maps, esoteric writings, speculative histories, and secretive traditions. Medieval and later thinkers lived in a world where geography, theology, legend, and inherited authority often overlapped. Distant islands and lost lands could appear at the edges of maps because the unknown still had room to breathe. Occult writers later treated Atlantis as a source of hidden wisdom, ancient magic, and forgotten spiritual science. This helped transform the story from a philosophical tale into a secret history. The shift matters because modern Atlantis culture inherited that atmosphere. It is not only about finding ruins. It is about uncovering what certain traditions suggest was concealed, coded, or passed through initiates. Skeptics see layers of fantasy added over centuries. Believers see those layers as clues. Either way, the legend survived because each age found a new use for the lost island. Renaissance scholars debated whether Atlantis belonged to history or allegory. During the Renaissance, ancient texts returned with new force, and Atlantis became part of the larger conversation about the past. Scholars, explorers, and philosophers were rethinking geography after ocean voyages revealed lands unknown to classical writers. In that atmosphere, Plato's island felt newly possible to some and deeply symbolic to others. Was it a real place beyond the Atlantic? Was it a moral allegory about power? Could it be connected to newly encountered lands across the ocean? These questions gave the legend fresh life. The Renaissance mattered because it placed Atlantis between scholarship and expansion. The world had become larger than Europeans once imagined, so perhaps ancient stories of distant lands deserved another look. At the same time, humanist readers knew Plato could use myth as philosophical art. The debate from that period still sounds familiar today. Atlantis remained suspended between map and meaning, between discovery and interpretation. Francis Bacon imagined a new Atlantis filled with advanced knowledge. In the early modern imagination, Atlantis became more than a lost place. Francis Bacon used the name for a visionary society devoted to learning, experiment, order, and useful knowledge. His version was not Plato's sunken empire, but it helped reshape the legend. Atlantis became associated with scientific advancement, secret institutions, and the dream of a society guided by hidden wisdom. That idea still echoes in modern speculation. When people imagine the lost civilization possessing energy devices, healing arts, advanced astronomy, or superior engineering, they are partly living inside this later transformation. Bacon's work made Atlantis a symbol of what humanity could become, not only what it may have lost. This is fascinating because it turns the legend forward as well as backward. The island is no longer only a ruin beneath the sea. It becomes a mirror of possibility. Maybe Atlantis is the warning of a fallen world, and also the dream of a wiser one. Theosophists turned Atlantis into a hidden chapter of human evolution. In the 19th and early 20th centuries, theosophical writers expanded Atlantis into a vast spiritual history of humanity. They described root races, lost continents, psychic abilities, ancient wisdom, and cycles of rise and fall. These ideas are not accepted as mainstream history, and some parts of that tradition include outdated and troubling racial concepts. Yet its influence on modern Atlantis speculation is enormous. It shifted the lost island from Plato's political and moral story into an entire hidden prehistory. Atlantis became a stage in humanity's spiritual development, filled with powers that later declined or were misused. Many later ideas about crystals, vibrations, initiates, and ancient superscience owe something to this esoteric atmosphere. The appeal is clear. A missing civilization becomes a missing phase of ourselves. Theosophy made Atlantis feel not merely archaeological, but evolutionary and mystical. It suggested that the past contains buried capacities humanity may have forgotten. Modern channelers describe Atlantis as a civilization destroyed by misused power. In many New Age accounts, Atlantis is remembered not through ruins, but through messages, visions, regressions, and spiritual impressions. These narratives often describe a society with advanced energy systems, crystal technologies, healing temples, and people divided between wisdom and ambition. The fall comes when power outruns responsibility. That theme is one reason the modern version resonates so strongly. It speaks to nuclear weapons, artificial intelligence, environmental damage, and every fear that human invention may exceed human character. Skeptics see these accounts as imagination, suggestion, or spiritual storytelling rather than evidence. Yet they have become part of the living Atlantis tradition. They make the lost civilization feel emotionally relevant now. Atlantis becomes a warning from a possible former age. It asks what happens when knowledge expands, but humility fails to keep pace. Whether channeled memory or modern myth, the message is clear enough to linger. Power without wisdom can become its own flood. Crystal technology theories remain among the strangest Atlantis traditions. Few ideas are more closely associated with modern Atlantis lore than crystals used as power sources, communication tools, healing instruments, or energy amplifiers. In these theories, the Atlanteans understood subtle forces that later civilizations forgot. Crystals could focus light, store information, influence the body, or drive machines beyond familiar engineering. There is no accepted proof for such technology, but the concept remains popular because crystals already feel mysterious. They grow in ordered forms, refract light, hold electrical properties in some uses, and appear in both science and spirituality. That makes them perfect objects for speculation. Some people imagine great crystal engines causing the final disaster when misused. Others see them as symbols of clarity and lost harmony. The theory may be far from conventional archaeology, but it captures a core Atlantis feeling. The lost world did not only have more wealth, it may have understood forces we are only beginning to name. The greatest mystery may be why Atlantis feels so believable. The legend survives because it sits in the perfect place between evidence and desire. It has an ancient source, specific details, moral weight, possible disaster memories, and enough geographical clues to keep people searching. At the same time, it lacks the one discovery that would settle the question. That tension makes it irresistible. People believe in Atlantis for many reasons. Some trust Plato more than scholars do. Some see patterns across myths. Some feel that archaeology has underestimated the deep past. Others simply sense that humanity's story is missing something. The strange thing is that even skeptics often understand the attraction. We know real cities have drowned. We know landscapes have changed. We know cultures can vanish and leave only fragments. Atlantis gathers all those truths into one beautiful uncertainty. It feels believable because the world really does lose things. The question is whether this particular lost thing was ever there. Atlantis survives because every lost world leaves a door half open. The story has lasted for more than 2,000 years because it never fully closes. Plato gives enough detail to search, but not enough to prove. Archaeology offers drowned cities, but not the final island. Geology explains many disasters, but not every memory. Myths echo with floods, but each echo belongs to its own culture. That half-open door is where Atlantis lives. It invites scholars, dreamers, divers, mystics, skeptics, and storytellers to stand at the threshold together. Some look for stones. Some look for maps. Some look for hidden records. Some look for a warning about our own civilization. Perhaps Atlantis was a place. Perhaps it was a parable. Perhaps it was a bundle of older memories tied into one unforgettable shape. Its power comes from the fact that none of those answers completely empties the mystery. Somewhere between the seabed and the imagination, the door remains open. And so, we leave Atlantis where we found it, somewhere between ancient memory and the moving sea. Tonight, we followed Plato's strange account of a powerful island empire, with shining temples, sacred rings, engineered canals, royal rituals, mysterious metals, and a catastrophe said to have arrived in a single day and night. We wandered from Santorini and Crete to Spain, the Sahara, the Azores, Bimini, Cuba, Japan, Malta, Sardinia, and the frozen edge of Antarctica. We passed through sunken cities that were once doubted, flood stories that may carry older memories, and theories of hidden records, crystal power, lost astronomy, and wisdom scattered across the world after a forgotten fall. And perhaps that is why Atlantis still holds us. It is not only the thought of ruins beneath the water. It is the feeling that history may have missing rooms, that the ocean may be covering old roads, that myths may sometimes preserve a shape of truth, even when the details have drifted away like sand under a tide. If you enjoyed this journey, I invite you to like, subscribe, or leave a thought below. It helps other curious travelers find their way here too. And if you happen to still be awake, there will be another mystery waiting on the screen, ready to carry you a little farther into the unknown. But for now, let the search begin to fade. Let the maps fold closed. Let the waves grow softer in your mind. There is nothing more to solve tonight. No hidden doorway you need to open. No lost city you need to find. Allow your shoulders to loosen. Let your breathing slow. And imagine the ancient sea settling under a sky full of stars, with every unanswered question resting safely beneath the surface. Sleep well, and good night.